The ballroom doors opened with a sound like thunder, and every head turned toward the entrance. I watched from my seat in the back corner, uninvited, unexpected, unwanted. The wedding ceremony had just finished. Marcus stood at the altar in his custom Tom Ford tuxedo, the one I'd paid for with my credit card 3 weeks before he'd served me divorce papers. Next to him, Claire held her bouquet of white peonies, the same flowers I'd carried at our wedding 7 years ago. The irony wasn't lost on me, but I wasn't looking at them. I was looking at the man who just walked through those doors. He was tall, silver-haired, wearing a charcoal suit that screamed old money. He carried a leather briefcase in one hand and a manila folder in the other. Behind him, 2 uniformed officers followed at a respectful distance. The string quartet faltered. The guests' champagne glasses froze halfway to their lips. And Marcus went pale as death itself. The man walked down the center aisle with the confidence of someone who'd done this 1,000 times before. His footsteps echoed on the marble floor. Click, click, click. Each step closer to the happy couple. When he reached the altar, he looked at Marcus with the kind of smile that wasn't really a smile at all. Marcus Holloway. His voice carried through the silent room. Marcus couldn't speak, just nodded. You're being served with a lawsuit for fraud, embezzlement, and theft of marital assets totaling $847,000. Additionally, there's a warrant here for your arrest on charges of perjury. He held out the folder. Marcus didn't take it, so the man simply set it on the white, clothed gift table. The officers will wait until after you've had a moment with your bride. The gasp started then, rippling through the crowd like a wave. Claire dropped her bouquet. Marcus's mother made a sound like a wounded animal, and his father, the district attorney who'd sat across from me in mediation and called me a gold digger, turned to look at me for the first time. I met his eyes. Didn't smile. Didn't frown. Just watched him realize that the woman they'd thrown away like trash had teeth after all. Before the story begins, please leave us a comment telling us which state or city you are watching from. Don't forget to like and subscribe so this channel can grow and bring you more exciting stories. Now, let me tell you how it all started. My name is Catherine Wright. Well, it was Catherine Holloway for 7 years, but I took my maiden name back the day the divorce was finalized. That was 4 months ago. 4 months that felt like 4 years. 4 months that changed everything I thought I knew about love, trust, and my own strength. The morning it all began was a Tuesday in March. I remember because Tuesdays were my favorite days. Marcus's late mornings at the office meant we could have breakfast together. I'd wake up early, make his coffee the way he liked it. 2 sugars, heavy cream, a tiny pinch of cinnamon, and prepare something special. That morning it was blueberry pancakes with maple syrup. The real stuff from Vermont that cost $18 a bottle. The kitchen smelled like butter and vanilla. Morning sunlight streamed through the bay windows of our Buckhead penthouse, making the marble countertops glow. I'd arranged fresh tulips in the crystal vase my mother had given us as a wedding gift. Everything was perfect. Everything was always perfect. Marcus came out of the bedroom at 7:30, already dressed in his navy suit, already scrolling through his phone. He'd been on that phone constantly for the past 2 months. Work stress, he'd said. His father's law firm was taking on a huge corporate client. Lots of late nights, lots of weekend meetings. Morning, honey, I said, sliding a plate of pancakes in front of him. I made your favorite. He glanced at the plate. Didn't smile. I'm not really hungry? You need to eat something. You barely touched dinner last night. Catherine, I said, I'm not hungry. The sharpness in his voice made me flinch. He'd never used that tone with me before. Not in 7 years of marriage. 3 years of dating before that. 10 years together, and I'd never heard that edge. I sat down across from him with my own plate, suddenly not hungry either. The pancake sat between us, cooling, untouched. He kept typing on his phone. The sound of his thumbs hitting the screen, tap, 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 filled the silence. Eyes, everything okay? I asked softly. Everything's fine. He didn't look up. Because if something's bothering you, we can talk about it. I'm here for you, whatever it is. Finally, he looked at me. Really looked at me. And something in his eyes made my chest tighten. There was no warmth there. No affection. Just a flat, distant coldness I'd never seen before. I said, everything's fine, Catherine. Stop pushing. He stood up, grabbed his briefcase, and walked toward the door. Didn't kiss me goodbye. Didn't say he loved me. Just left. The door clicked shut behind him, and I sat there in our perfect kitchen, surrounded by perfect things, feeling the first crack form in my perfect world. I told myself I was imagining it. He was stressed. The new client was important. His father had high expectations. It would pass. Everything would go back to normal soon. I was so naive. That afternoon, I decided to surprise him at the office. I'd take him his favorite lunch from that Italian place on Peachtree Road. Chicken parmigiana, extra sauce, garlic bread, cannoli for dessert. We'd eat together in his office like we used to when we were dating. I'd remind him of the good things. The us things. I spent an hour getting ready. Wore the blue dress he'd once said made my eyes look like sapphires. Curled my hair. Put on the perfume he'd given me last Christmas, Chanel No. 5, classic and elegant. Just like he'd said I was. I picked up the food, made sure everything was still hot, and drove to Holloway and Associates on Northside Drive. The building was a sleek glass tower, 16 floors of legal power. Marcus worked on the 12th floor, corner office, view of the city. I'd been there dozens of times. The receptionist knew me by name. Mrs. Holloway? Bethany smiled when I walked in. He's not expecting you, is he? This is so sweet. Just wanted to surprise him, I said, holding up the bag of food. Is he available? Something flickered across her face. Just for a second, a tightening around her eyes. He's in a meeting right now. Should be done soon, though. You can wait in his office if you want. Perfect. Thank you. I walked down the familiar hallway, past the conference rooms and associate offices toward the corner. Marcus's door was closed. Through the frosted glass, I could see shapes moving. He was in there. With someone else, I hesitated. Should I knock? Just walk in. Wait outside. The decision was made for me when the door suddenly opened. A woman walked out. She was beautiful. Stunningly so. Long blonde hair, perfect skin. Designer business suit that probably cost more than my car payment. She carried a Birkin bag. I recognized it because I'd once pointed one out to Marcus in a magazine, joking that it cost more than our wedding, and he'd called me materialistic for even looking at it. She had that bag on her arm like it was nothing. She saw me. Her eyes went wide for just a fraction of a second. Then she smiled. It was the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes. You must be Catherine, she said. Her voice was smooth, cultured, with just a hint of southern honey. I've heard so much about you. I hadn't heard anything about her. I'm Claire Montgomery. I'm working on the Baxter account with Marcus. We've been putting in some long hours lately. She glanced back toward the office. He's brilliant. Your husband. Absolutely brilliant. Something in the way she said, your husband, made my skin prickle. Like she was tasting the words, testing them. Nice to meet you, I said, my voice coming out smaller than I intended. I brought him lunch? How thoughtful. She checked her watch, a Cartier I noticed. Well, I should run. Marcus, I'll see you tonight for the deposition prep. She walked away, heels clicking on the polished floor. I stood there, holding a bag of Italian food that was getting cold, and watched her disappear around the corner. Catherine. I turned. Marcus stood in his doorway, and he did not look happy to see me. What are you doing here? I brought you lunch. I held up the bag like an offering. Your favorite. I thought we could eat together. He glanced back into his office, then stepped into the hallway, pulling the door closed behind him. This isn't a good time. That woman said you have deposition prep tonight. Yeah, the Baxter case. It's complicated. You didn't mention it this morning. I didn't know this morning. He crossed his arms. Look, I appreciate the lunch, but I'm swamped. I don't have time for this right now. This. He called us spending time together. This. Like I was an interruption. An inconvenience? Okay, I said quietly. Should I just leave it with you? You can eat when you have time. I'll grab something from the cafeteria. You should take that home. He was already turning back toward his office. Already dismissing me. Marcus, wait. He stopped. Didn't turn around. Just stood there with his back to me. Is everything all right with us? The silence stretched. 5 seconds. 10. Finally, he looked over his shoulder. Everything's fine, Catherine. You're being paranoid. Then he went back into his office and closed the door. Through the frosted glass, I watched his silhouette return to his desk. Sit down. Pick up his phone. I stood in that hallway for a full minute, holding a bag of food that neither of us would eat, feeling like I'd just been erased. The drive home was a blur. I kept replaying the scene in my mind. Marcus's coldness, Claire's smile, the way she'd said, "Tonight," like it was normal for her to have evening plans with my husband. The way he'd called me paranoid. Was I being paranoid? Maybe. He was stressed. The case was important. I was probably reading too much into it. But that night, when he came home at 11:30, smelling like expensive perfume that wasn't mine, something inside me started to break. The next 3 weeks were a masterclass in gaslighting, though I didn't know that word yet. I just knew that every time I questioned something, Marcus made me feel crazy for asking, "Why are you working so late every night? I told you, the Baxter case is huge. Why did you password protect your phone?" "Because there's confidential client information on it. I could be disbarred if someone accessed it." "Why can't I come to the firm dinner on Saturday?" "It's partners only. You'd be bored anyway." "Why did Claire Montgomery like all your Instagram photos from 2 years ago?" "How do I know why someone likes posts?" "Are you seriously stalking my social media now?" "That's insane, Catherine. Insane." Paranoid, clingy, suspicious. Those were his favorite words for me now. Every question was met with irritation. Every concern was dismissed as me being emotional or irrational. I started to believe him. Maybe I was being crazy. Maybe the stress of his job was making me see things that weren't there. Maybe I needed to back off, give him space, trust him more. So I did. I stopped asking questions. Stopped bringing him lunch. Stopped waiting up for him when he worked late. I threw myself into my own life. The charity work I did for the Atlanta Women's Shelter, my book club, my yoga classes. I tried to be the perfect wife who didn't complain, didn't nag, didn't make problems. And while I was being perfect, my husband was planning my destruction. It happened on a Thursday afternoon in April. I'd just come home from teaching an art class at the shelter, painting with women who were rebuilding their lives after leaving abusive relationships. The irony, looking back, is almost funny. Almost. I walked into our penthouse and immediately knew something was wrong. The air felt different. Colder. There was a smell I couldn't quite place, something floral and expensive and foreign. Marcus was sitting on our white leather sofa. He wasn't alone. Claire Montgomery sat next to him, not across from him. Next to him, close enough that their knees were almost touching. She had papers spread out on the coffee table. My coffee table, the one I'd picked out from that boutique in Virginia, Highland, the one I'd spent 3 hours choosing because I wanted it to be perfect. They both looked up when I came in. Marcus didn't smile, didn't stand up, didn't greet me. Claire did smile, that same smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Catherine," Marcus said, "we need to talk." The bottom dropped out of my stomach. Those 4 words, the ones everyone fears, the ones that mean everything is about to change. "What's going on?" I set my purse down on the entry table. My hands were already shaking. "Sit down." I didn't want to sit. I wanted to run. But my legs moved anyway, carrying me to the armchair across from them. I sat on the edge, spine straight, hands folded in my lap. The posture my mother had taught me. The one that said I was composed, collected, in control. I was none of those things. "I want a divorce," Marcus said. Just like that. No preamble. No explanation. Just 5 words that detonated my entire life. The room tilted. I gripped the arms of the chair to steady myself. "What?" "I want a divorce. I'm not happy. I haven't been happy for a long time. This marriage isn't working anymore." My brain was screaming. My mouth couldn't form words. I looked at Claire, sitting there on my sofa in my home, watching my marriage end. "Why is she here?" "Claire's here as my attorney," Marcus said calmly. Too calmly, like he'd rehearsed this. "She's going to handle the divorce proceedings." "Your attorney." The words came out as a whisper. "You hired her to divorce me. I need representation. She's the best." I looked at her, really looked at her, at the way she sat just a little too close to my husband, at the way her hand rested on the papers between them, her fingers almost touching his, at the small, satisfied curve of her lips. "How long?" I asked. "How long what?" Marcus said. "How long have you two been fucking?" Claire's smile disappeared. Marcus's jaw tightened. "This isn't about that," he said. "So you are." It wasn't a question anymore. The truth was written all over both their faces, in the way they looked at each other, in the way they sat together like they'd done this 1,000 times before. "Who I spend time with is no longer your concern," Marcus said. "We're getting divorced." I've already filed the papers. You'll be served officially tomorrow, but I wanted to tell you in person. How generous, how considerate. I don't understand. My voice was breaking now, tears starting to burn behind my eyes. I don't understand what happened. We were happy. We were good together. What did I do wrong? You didn't do anything wrong. He said it like he was talking to a child, patronizing, dismissive. We just grew apart. These things happen. These things don't just happen, Marcus. People make choices. You chose this, you chose her? I pointed at Claire, who had the decency to look away. How long has this been going on? That doesn't matter. It matters to me. How long have you been lying to me? How long have you been sneaking around while I made your coffee and cooked your meals and waited up for you and believed you when you said you were working late? About 8 months, Claire said quietly. The room went silent. Marcus turned to look at her, and for a second, I saw anger flash across his face. She'd gone off script, said something she wasn't supposed to say. 8 months. 8 months of lies. 8 months of pretending to be my husband while planning my disposal. 8 months of making me feel crazy for suspecting the truth. I need you to move out, Marcus said, turning back to me. The penthouse is in my name. Technically, it's my property, but I'm willing to give you 2 weeks to find somewhere else to live. 2 weeks. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. This is my home. I've lived here for 6 years, and now you need to leave. The papers Claire drafted are generous. You'll get a fair settlement. Enough to get you started somewhere new. Fair settlement. I looked down at the papers on the table. Claire pushed them toward me. I picked up the top page with shaking hands. The numbers blurred. I blinked, trying to focus, trying to understand what I was seeing. $50,000. I looked up at Marcus. You're offering me $50,000? It's more than fair, considering you didn't contribute financially to the marriage. I didn't contribute. The words died in my throat. For a moment, I couldn't speak, couldn't process what he'd just said. I worked full-time until 3 years ago. I paid half the bills. I used my inheritance from my grandmother to make the down payment on this place. That down payment was a gift to the marriage. Claire interjected smoothly. Community property. And since you quit working, you've been financially dependent on Marcus. I quit working because we decided to start a family. You said you wanted me home. You said it would be better if I wasn't stressed from work when we were trying to conceive. I'd quit my job at the museum. I'd love that job. Assistant curator, Renaissance art collection, $62,000 a year. But Marcus had convinced me that the stress was preventing pregnancy. That if I just relaxed, just focused on my health, on us, it would happen naturally. We'd been trying for 2 years. 2 years of negative pregnancy tests. 2 years of doctor's appointments and hormone treatments and hope that kept dying month after month. And now I knew why it had never worked. He hadn't wanted a baby with me. He just wanted me dependent. Well, that didn't work out, did it? Marcus said coldly. No, you need to move forward. $50,000 is generous for someone with no current income and no job prospects. No job prospects. Like I was worthless, useless, nothing without him. I want to contest this, I said. My voice sounded far away, like it belonged to someone else. I'm not signing anything. You can contest it, Claire said. But I should warn you, we have documentation of your mental instability over the past several months. Your increasingly paranoid behavior. Your accusations. Your inability to maintain emotional stability. Mental instability. Marcus has been keeping detailed notes, for his own safety. In case things escalated, she pulled out another folder. Text messages where you accused him of cheating with no evidence. Records of you showing up at his workplace unannounced. Testimony from friends and family about your erratic behavior. I felt like I was drowning. Sinking into dark water with nothing to hold on to. You documented, you set me up. You made me look crazy on purpose. I documented concerning behavior. Marcus said, the courts take mental health very seriously, especially when it comes to asset division. If you fight this, Catherine, it will get ugly. And you'll lose. Trust me? His father was a district attorney. His uncle was a judge. He knew how to work the system. Knew how to make me look like an unstable, paranoid woman who couldn't be trusted. Who didn't deserve anything. I looked at both of them sitting there on my sofa. In my home, destroying my life, and I felt something break inside me. Not my heart. That was already shattered. Something deeper. Some fundamental belief I'd had about the world. About people. About love. Get out, I whispered. This is my apartment, Marcus said. Then I'll get out. I stood up. My legs felt like water, but they held. I'll be gone by tomorrow. Catherine, I really think you should take a few days to review the papers with a clear head, Claire said in that smooth, reasonable voice. We want this to be amicable. Amicable. I laughed. It sounded hysterical even to my own ears. You want to fuck my husband, take my home, steal my life, and you want it to be amicable. There's no need for vulgarity, Marcus said. I looked at him. Really looked at him. At this man I'd loved for 10 years. This man I'd built my entire adult life around, and I didn't recognize him. Maybe I never had. Maybe this cold, calculating stranger was who he'd been all along, and I'd just been too in love to see it. I'll have my things out by tomorrow afternoon, I said quietly. I walked to the bedroom, closed the door, locked it, and then I collapsed. The carpet was soft against my cheek. I could hear them talking in the living room. Couldn't make out the words. Didn't need to. I lay there on the floor of the bedroom I'd decorated, in the home I'd made, and I cried until I couldn't breathe. What I didn't know was that this was just the beginning. That the betrayal I'd discovered today was only the surface. That the real horror was still waiting to be uncovered, but the worst was yet to come. I left the next morning with 6 suitcases, 2 boxes, and my mother's jewelry box. That was all I could fit in my car. Everything else, the furniture I'd chosen, the art I'd collected, the books I'd loved, the life I'd built, I left behind. Marcus wasn't there when I packed. Neither was Claire. The penthouse was empty, echoing with my footsteps, haunted by the ghost of who I used to be. I took one last look around before I closed the door. Tried to memorize it. Tried to remember what it felt like when I was happy here. I couldn't. That person was gone. I was someone else now. Someone smaller. Someone broken. I drove to my best friend Jessica's apartment in Decatur. She'd been my college roommate, my maid of honor, my person for the past 15 years. When I called her at 6 in the morning, crying so hard I could barely speak, she'd said, "Come here? Now don't stop. Just drive." She opened the door before I even knocked. Took one look at my face and pulled me inside. "He's leaving me," I said. Then I collapsed into her arms and told her everything. Jessica held me while I cried, made me tea I didn't drink, helped me carry my suitcases inside, and then she said the words I needed to hear. "We're getting you a lawyer. A real one. Someone who will fight for you." I can't afford a lawyer. I have $1,200 in my personal checking account. That's it. Then we'll find someone who works on contingency. Catherine, you cannot just accept this. He's trying to rob you blind. Claire said I'd lose if I fought it. Claire is a lying bitch who's screwing your husband. I wouldn't trust her to tell me the sky is blue. Jessica grabbed her laptop. There has to be someone. Let me make some calls. While she made calls, I sat on her couch staring at nothing. Trying to process, trying to understand how my life had imploded so completely in less than 24 hours. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick it up. Is this Catherine Holloway? A woman's voice. Professional? Clipped. Yes! This is Linda Chen from First National Bank. I'm calling about some unusual activity on your joint account with Marcus Holloway. My stomach dropped. What kind of unusual activity? A wire transfer of $635 was initiated yesterday afternoon. The account has been nearly emptied. I'm calling to verify this was authorized by both account holders. The room tilted. Jessica was suddenly kneeling in front of me, gripping my hands. What's wrong? I didn't authorize any transfer, I said. My voice sounded distant. Hollow, I see. In that case, I need to inform you that the account has been flagged for potential fraud. You'll need to come into the branch to file a report and… Where did the money go? A pause. I'm not at liberty to disclose that information over the phone. But if you come to the branch, when did this happen? Exactly what time? The transfer was initiated at 3:47 p.m. yesterday. Yesterday. While Marcus and Claire were sitting in my living room, telling me I had 2 weeks to move out, offering me $50,000 like it was generous, the money was already gone. Our savings. My grandmother's inheritance that I deposited into our joint account. The money from selling my car when we moved in together. Everything. He'd robbed me, planned it. Executed it while looking me in the eyes and calling me paranoid. "I'll be there in an hour," I said. I hung up, looked at Jessica, and told her. Her face went white, then red, then white again. "That motherfucker." We drove to the bank. Linda Chen was a small, efficient woman with kind eyes who looked genuinely distressed as she pulled up the account information. The money was transferred to an account under Marcus Holloway's name only. It was done through our online portal using his login credentials. Technically, as a joint account holder, he had the legal right to transfer the funds, even without telling me. Unfortunately, yes. Joint accounts work on an or basis, not an and basis. Either party can access the full amount. She looked at me with sympathy. I see this more often than I'd like. Usually during divorces. Can I stop it? Get it back. The transfer's already complete. The money's gone. Your only recourse would be through the divorce proceedings. You'd need to prove to a judge that he's hiding marital assets. What about my personal account? Linda checked her computer. Her expression tightened. I'm sorry. That account was closed yesterday at 4:15 p.m. What? How? That was my individual account. My name only. I'm showing here that you came in and closed it yourself. Withdrew the remaining balance in cash. I didn't do that. I was home packing. I wasn't anywhere near a bank. Linda turned her monitor toward me. Security footage. Time stamped 4:13 p.m. the previous afternoon. A woman in a baseball cap and sunglasses, face mostly obscured, signing papers at a teller window. The woman was about my height, my build. She wore jeans and a blue jacket similar to one I owned. But it wasn't me. That's not me, I said. According to our records, she provided your ID and knew your security questions. My ID is in my purse. I pulled out my wallet. Opened it. My driver's license was gone. It was stolen. Someone stole my ID and impersonated me. Linda's expression went from sympathetic to grave. This is identity theft. You need to file a police report immediately. We filed the report. Officer Martinez was patient and thorough, but his final words weren't encouraging. In domestic situations like this, it's often hard to prove criminal intent. He'll say you gave him permission, that you authorized the closures. The DA usually won't prosecute without solid evidence. His father is the DA, I said quietly. Officer Martinez's expression told me everything I needed to know. By the time we left the police station, it was late afternoon. I'd lost my home, my husband, my money, and my faith in justice all in the span of 36 hours. Jessica took me back to her apartment, made me soup I couldn't eat, held me while I cried. And then, when I'd cried myself out, she said, "We're going to fight this. I don't care who his father is. We're going to fight." But I was so tired, so completely exhausted, and I couldn't see how someone like me, with no money, no job, no resources, could fight someone like Marcus, who had everything. What I didn't know was that I wasn't as powerless as I thought. That my father, who died 3 years earlier, had left me something. Something Marcus didn't know about. Something that was about to change everything. Little did I realize, salvation was waiting in a safety deposit box I'd forgotten I had. 3 days after Marcus destroyed my life, I received a letter. Not from him or his lawyers, from a firm in Charleston, South Carolina. Whitmore and Associates, estate attorneys. The envelope was thick, expensive paper. The kind that felt important. I opened it sitting on Jessica's couch, surrounded by boxes I hadn't unpacked, wearing the same sweatpants I'd been wearing for 2 days. Dear Ms. Wright, this letter concerns the estate of your late father, Thomas Wright, who passed away 3 years ago on April 12th. As you know, the majority of his estate was settled at that time. However, there was a secondary provision in his will that was time-triggered and has now been activated. Your father left specific instructions that a sealed letter and accompanying assets be delivered to you in the event of certain circumstances. Those circumstances have now been met, as indicated by our monitoring service. Please contact our office at your earliest convenience to arrange receipt of these materials. I read the letter 3 times. Didn't understand it. My father's estate had been settled years ago. There'd been a small life insurance policy and some savings, maybe $40,000 in total, which I'd used for our down payment on the penthouse. Everything else, his modest house, his car, his belongings, had been sold or donated. What secondary provision? What circumstances? I called the number. A receptionist answered. Whitmore and Associates. This is Catherine Wright. I received a letter about my father's estate. Oh, yes, Ms. Wright. Mr. Whitmore has been expecting your call. One moment, please. Classical music. Then a man's voice, deep and cultured. Ms. Wright, thank you for calling. I'm Robert Whitmore. I handled your father's estate planning. I don't understand what the letter means. What secondary provision? Your father was a very careful man, very protective of you. When he drafted his will, he included certain safeguards. Instructions that would activate if specific conditions were met. What conditions? Without going into extensive detail over the phone, the monitoring service we set up alerted us to significant changes in your marital status and financial situation. Your father wanted to ensure that if you ever found yourself in a vulnerable position, you would have resources available. My throat tightened. My father knew. 3 years ago, he knew this would happen. He didn't know specifically, but he was concerned. He mentioned in our conversations that he didn't entirely trust your husband, that he wanted to make sure you always had a safety net, no matter what. Tears were streaming down my face. My father, my dad, who'd walked me down the aisle, who'd welcomed Marcus into our family, who died of a heart attack before he ever got to see me happy or sad, or any of the things that came after. He'd known. He'd protected me even from beyond the grave. What did he leave me? I can't disclose the full details until you come to the office and we verify your identity. But I can tell you it's substantial. Your father was a very prudent investor, Ms. Wright. The assets have grown considerably over the past 3 years. Can you give me a number? Any number. I need to know if this is enough to hire a lawyer. Whitmore paused. Then, the estate currently values at approximately 2-3 million. The room went silent. I couldn't hear anything over the roaring in my ears. Ms. Wright, are you still there? $2.3 million? Yes. Plus the real property. Your father owned several parcels of land in Georgia and South Carolina, agricultural leases. The income from those leases has been held in trust. It's all yours now. I couldn't speak, couldn't think. Jessica was staring at me, mouthing, What is it? There's also a letter. Whitmore continued gently. A sealed letter from your father. He wanted you to read it when you received this news. I'd like to give that to you in person. I can be there tomorrow. Excellent. I'll arrange everything. Ms. Wright, your father loved you very much. He wanted you to know that you were never as helpless as you might feel. I hung up, looked at Jessica, and started laughing, crying and laughing at the same time, making sounds that were probably concerning, but I couldn't stop. Catherine, you're scaring me. What happened? My father left me over $2 million. Jessica's mouth dropped open. What? He hid it. Set it up so it would only come to me if something bad happened. And it did. And now. I looked at her. This wild hope blooming in my chest for the first time since Marcus had said those 4 words. Now I can fight back. We drove to Charleston the next morning. 5 hours through Georgia and South Carolina, windows down, music playing, both of us running on adrenaline and vindication. I felt like myself again for the first time in days. Not the broken woman who'd been thrown out of her own home. Someone stronger. Someone with teeth. Whitmore and Associates occupied a historic building on Broad Street. Robert Whitmore was exactly what I'd expected, silver-haired, distinguished, kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He shook my hand warmly and led me to his office. On his desk was a wooden box, dark cherry, with my name engraved on a brass plate. Your father gave me this 6 months before he died. Made me promise I'd only give it to you under certain conditions. He pushed it toward me. Those conditions have been met. Everything you need is in here. Account numbers, property deeds, investment information, and the letter. I opened the box with shaking hands. Inside was a thick manila folder and a sealed envelope with Catherine written in my father's handwriting. I picked up the envelope. Held it against my chest. Can I have a moment? Of course. Take all the time you need. I'll be right outside. When he left, I opened the envelope carefully. 2 pages handwritten. I could almost hear his voice as I read. My dearest Catherine, if you're reading this, it means something has gone very wrong. I pray I'm mistaken. I pray you'll live your entire life and never need what I've left for you. But I know people. I know men. And I know that sometimes the face we see isn't the real person underneath. I never told you this, but I didn't trust Marcus. I saw something in him that worried me. A coldness when he thought no one was watching. An entitlement. a calculation. I couldn't prove it. I couldn't point to anything specific. So I kept quiet because I wanted you to be happy. I wanted to be wrong, but just in case I wasn't, I made arrangements. The money I'm leaving you isn't from insurance or savings. It's from investments I made decades ago when you were born. Land I bought. Stocks I held. I told your mother it was for retirement, but really it was for you. For this moment, if it ever came. You are not helpless, Catherine. You are my daughter. You have my strength in you, even if you don't feel it right now. You have my stubbornness, my refusal to be beaten. And now you have my resources. Use this money wisely. Hire the best lawyers. Fight for what's yours. Don't let anyone make you feel small or worthless or dependent. You are none of those things. You never were. I won't be there to walk you through this. I'm sorry for that. I wish I could be. But I trust you. I believe in you. And I want you to know that whatever happened to bring you to this letter, it wasn't your fault. Some people are just broken inside, and there's nothing love can fix. Be strong, my girl. Be fierce. And remember that your old dad is proud of you, wherever I am. With all my love, Dad. I folded the letter carefully, pressed it against my heart, and whispered, "Thank you." When I came out of the office, Robert Whitmore was waiting with more documents. The properties are all in your name now. The accounts are being transferred to your individual control. It should all be complete within 48 hours. Can you recommend a lawyer? Someone who specializes in divorce cases? He smiled. I know just the person. Her name is Margaret Okonkwo. She's based in Atlanta. Used to work for the district attorney's office before she went into private practice. She's brilliant, ruthless, and she hates bullies. She sounds perfect. He made a call, spoke quietly, then handed me the phone. Em's right. The voice was crisp, authoritative, with a slight Nigerian accent. Robert tells me you need representation in a divorce proceeding. Why don't you tell me what's happening, and we'll see if I can help. I told her everything. Marcus. Claire, the money he'd stolen, the identity theft, his father being the DA, the $50,000 settlement offer, his threats about my mental stability. When I finished, there was a long pause. Then, Mem's right. I'm going to absolutely destroy these people. When can you come to my office? We met 2 days later in her office on Peachtree Street. Margaret Okonkwo was a tall, elegant woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and sharper suits. She listened to my story again, taking notes, asking pointed questions. He committed fraud, she said flatly. He stole marital assets. He or someone working with him committed identity theft. And he tried to coerce you into signing away your rights under duress. The fact that his father is the DA makes this more complicated, but not impossible. Can we win? Can we? Yes, will we? That depends on evidence. Do you have any documentation of the accounts? Bank statements? Anything? I have online access to the joint account, or I did before he changed the passwords. Good. We'll subpoena the records. What about proof of his affair with Claire Montgomery? Just circumstantial stuff. Her being at the apartment. Him coming home late smelling like perfume. Not enough for criminal proceedings, but enough to establish adultery, which affects asset division in Georgia. What about his firm? Do they know he's having an affair with a colleague? I hadn't thought about that. I don't know. Find out. If they have a fraternization policy, we can use that. Also, Claire Montgomery acting as his divorce attorney while being his mistress is a conflict of interest. She could be disbarred for that. Margaret smiled. It wasn't warm. It was the smile of a predator. This is going to be fun. They made me feel crazy, I said quietly. For months, he made me feel like I was paranoid and irrational and unstable. That's called gaslighting. It's a form of emotional abuse, and we're going to make him pay for it. She leaned forward. Em's right. I need you to understand something. This is going to get ugly. They're going to fight dirty. They're going to try to destroy your reputation. His father will use his connections. Are you prepared for that? I thought about my father's letter, about his faith in me, about the strength he'd said I had. Yes, I said. I'm ready. Good. Then let's go to war. The next 6 weeks were a blur of legal maneuvers, document subpoenas, and strategic planning. Margaret worked with the speed and precision of a surgeon. Every move was calculated. Every action had a purpose. First, we filed a motion to freeze all of Marcus's assets, citing the fraudulent transfer of marital funds. The judge, not his uncle, Margaret made sure of that, granted it immediately. Second, we filed a formal complaint against Claire Montgomery with the State Bar of Georgia. Representing a client with whom you're having an affair is an ethics violation. It would take months to investigate, but the complaint itself was public record. Her reputation was already damaged. Third, we filed for an emergency hearing to address the stolen funds and identity theft. Marcus didn't see it coming. He'd expected me to roll over, to sign his papers and disappear quietly. Instead, he got served with a lawsuit, an asset freeze, and a court date. The first time I saw him, after leaving the penthouse, was at that emergency hearing. He walked into the courtroom with his father and a new lawyer, some partner from his firm, expensive suit, smug expression. He saw me sitting with Margaret and his face went pale, then red, then cold. The hearing lasted 3 hours. Margaret presented evidence of the fraudulent wire transfer, the closed personal account, the forged signature. The fact that Marcus had initiated these transactions the day before serving me divorce papers. His lawyer argued that I'd given verbal permission, that the accounts were joint and therefore he had legal access, that I was making false accusations out of spite. Margaret smiled and presented Marcus's own text messages. She'd subpoenaed his phone records. There were messages to Claire, emptied the accounts. She doesn't know yet. By the time she figures it out, it'll be too late. Once she signs the papers, we're clear. She gets nothing. My dad says he can make sure no judge will believe her if she fights it. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s named Honor Robinson, read the messages with an expression that could freeze fire. "Mr. Holloway," she said, looking at Marcus over her glasses. "Did you send these messages?" His lawyer started to speak. The judge held up her hand. "I asked Mr. Holloway." Marcus stood. "Yes, Your Honor, but they're taken out of context. What context would make she gets nothing acceptable when discussing marital assets?" Silence. That's what I thought. Judge Robinson turned to me. "M's right. I'm ordering the immediate return of all marital assets that were transferred without your knowledge or consent. Additionally, I'm referring this case to the Criminal Division for possible fraud and identity theft charges. Mr. Holloway, you are hereby ordered to pay Ms. Wright's legal fees and provide temporary spousal support of $8,000 per month until this matter is resolved." Marcus's face was purple. His father looked like he'd swallowed glass. And Margaret leaned over and whispered, "That's round 1. We've got 8 more rounds to go." But the best part, the absolute best part, was what happened when we left the courtroom. Claire was waiting in the hallway. She'd been there for moral support, I guess. When Marcus walked out with his father and lawyer, she reached for him. He shoved her hand away. "Don't touch me. This is your fault. My fault. You're the one who sent those texts. You told me it would be easy. You said she wouldn't fight it." People in the hallway were stopping, watching. Court reporters, other lawyers, building staff. "I told you to be careful with the money." Claire hissed, "I told you not to leave a paper trail." "Oh, so now you're blaming me? I'm losing my career for you." The bar complaint, do you know what that means? "I'm suspended pending investigation. I can't practice law." "Well, maybe you shouldn't have fucked your client." Marcus's voice echoed through the marble corridor. Judge Robinson came out of the courtroom, looked at both of them. "Mr. Holloway, Ms. Montgomery, this is a courthouse, not a reality show. Take your domestic dispute elsewhere." They left, fighting all the way to the elevator. And I stood there with Margaret, watching years of careful planning fall apart, because criminals always turn on each other eventually. "That was beautiful," Margaret said. "Should we get coffee to celebrate?" "I'd love that," I said. We were walking toward the exit when a man approached us. Tall, silver-haired, carrying a leather briefcase. He looked familiar, but I couldn't place him. "Mems Okonkwo," he said. "I was hoping to run into you." "Daniel," Margaret said warmly. "Catherine, this is Daniel Foster. He's a private investigator I've worked with before. One of the best." Daniel shook my hand. "I've been following your case. Interesting situation. Mind if I offer some pro bono assistance?" "Why would you do that?" I asked. He smiled. "Because I used to work with Marcus Holloway's father. District Attorney Holloway is a corrupt piece of work, and I've been waiting years for the right case to take him down. I think yours might be it." "What do you mean?" "I mean that DA Holloway has been using his position to help his son for years. Buried cases, intimidated witnesses, made evidence disappear, but he's been careful, never left proof, never gave anyone a reason to investigate him officially. Daniel opened his briefcase and pulled out a folder. Until now. Because when his son is facing criminal charges, he's not going to be careful anymore. He's going to be desperate. And desperate people make mistakes. You think he'll try to interfere with my case? I know he will. And when he does, we're going to catch him. All of this, Marcus, Claire, the stolen money, it's all going to lead us right to him. I looked at Margaret. She was smiling that predator smile again. Catherine, how do you feel about being a witness in a public corruption case? I thought about my father's letter. About being fierce. About having teeth. I feel great about it, I said. Daniel was right. Dia Holloway made his first mistake 2 weeks later. I was living in a furnished apartment in Midtown, paid for by the temporary support Marcus was court-ordered to provide. Margaret had hired Daniel officially, and he'd started surveilling Marcus and his father, looking for evidence. Building a case. What he found was bigger than any of us expected. They're using the wedding, Daniel said, laying photos across Margaret's conference table. Marcus and Claire are still getting married, October 12th. The venue is already booked. Invitations sent. That's bold, Margaret said. Getting married while the divorce and fraud case is still pending. It's more than bold. It's stupid, because Dia Holloway is using campaign funds to pay for it. I looked at the photos, bank records, wire transfers, receipts, all showing money flowing from District Attorney Stephen Holloway's campaign account to vendors for a wedding. Campaign funds, I said. Isn't that illegal? Very illegal, Daniel said. Misuse of campaign funds is a felony. If we can prove it, he's not just looking at discipline. He's looking at criminal charges, removal from office, prison time. Can we prove it? Margaret asked. But we need the right moment. If we move too early, he'll cover his tracks. We need to wait until there's no time to hide the evidence. Wait until when? Daniel smiled. Until the wedding. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. We would gather all the evidence, document everything, build an airtight case. And then, on the day of the wedding, we would serve Marcus with the fraud and theft charges and simultaneously deliver the evidence of his father's campaign finance violations to the State Ethics Commission and the FBI. 2 birds. 1 perfectly timed stone. I spent the next 3 months in a strange limbo, legally separated but not divorced, financially stable but emotionally exhausted, going to therapy, rebuilding friendships I'd neglected during my marriage, taking art classes again, remembering who Catherine Wright was before she became Catherine Holloway. Jessica moved in with me. We had wine nights and movie nights and nights where I cried, and she held me and told me I was going to be okay. Slowly, I started to believe her. I also started planning. I want to be there. I told Margaret one day in September, at the wedding, I want to see it. That's not a good idea, she said. Emotions will be high. It could complicate things. I don't care. I need to see it. I need to watch his face when reality catches up to him. Margaret studied me for a long moment. Then she nodded. Okay, but you stay quiet. You don't approach him. You're there as a witness, nothing more. I can do that. Daniel arranged everything. The serving of papers would happen right after the ceremony. Maximum public exposure, maximum humiliation. The FBI would be there to arrest D.A. Holloway on the campaign finance charges. The press would be there because Daniel had tipped them off anonymously. It was going to be a circus, and I was going to have a front row seat. October 12th arrived cold and bright. Autumn in Georgia. The leaves were turning gold and red against a blue sky. A perfect day for a wedding. Or a funeral. The venue was the Piedmont Estate, a historic mansion in Buckhead. The same place where Marcus and I had celebrated our 5th anniversary. The symmetry was probably intentional. Claire striking my memory from every space we'd occupied. I wore black. Simple dress. No jewelry. Hair pulled back. Margaret said I looked like I was going to a funeral. I told her I was. Jessica came with me. So did Margaret, though she stayed in the background with Daniel. We arrived during the ceremony, slipped in through the garden entrance, found seats in the very back row of the outdoor setup. The scene was beautiful, white chairs arranged in rows. Flower arrangements, peonies again, lining the aisle, string quartet playing, 200 guests in expensive clothes sipping champagne, whispering behind hands, and at the altar Marcus and Claire. He looked happy. genuinely happy. Smiling at her like she was the only person in the world, like our 10 years together had never existed, like I'd been erased. Claire wore white. A Verawan gown, probably 15 zalozen. The same designer I'd wanted for our wedding, but Marcus had said was too expensive. The officiant spoke about love and commitment and trust. I wanted to laugh, or vomit. I couldn't decide which. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today. Jessica squeezed my hand. You okay? No, I whispered. But I will be. The ceremony continued. Vows were exchanged. Rings were placed. The officiant pronounced them husband and wife. Marcus kissed Claire like he'd never kissed me. Like I'd been the practice round and she was the real thing. The guests applauded. The quartet played. Everyone stood up to move toward the reception area, and that's when the ballroom doors opened. Daniel Foster walked in first. Behind him, 2 FBI agents in their distinctive windbreakers. Behind them, 4 uniformed Atlanta police officers, and behind them, a crowd of reporters with cameras and microphones. The music stopped. Daniel walked down the center aisle with that confident stride. Behind him, everyone followed. The clicking of footsteps on the stone path, the murmur starting in the crowd, the confusion spreading like ripples. Marcus saw them coming. His face went through several expressions: confusion, recognition, fear, anger. He stepped forward, putting himself between the approaching group and Claire. "What's going on?" he demanded. "This is a private event. You can't be here." Daniel stopped in front of him, opened his briefcase, pulled out the manila folder. "Marcus Holloway, you're being served with criminal charges for fraud, embezzlement, and identity theft. The district attorney's office has issued a warrant for your arrest." The gasps were immediate. Rippling through the crowd like a wave, Claire grabbed Marcus's arm. His mother screamed, and his father, District Attorney Stephen Holloway, pushed through the crowd. "This is absurd," he bellowed. "You can't arrest my son at his wedding. This is harassment. This is—" One of the FBI agents stepped forward. "Stephen Holloway." DA Holloway stopped. "What?" "We have a warrant for your arrest on charges of misuse of campaign funds, corruption of public office, and obstruction of justice." The agent held up the warrant. "You have the right to remain silent." Everything happened at once then. DA Holloway tried to run. The officers caught him immediately. He shouted about his rights, his connections, his power. None of it mattered. Claire started crying, mascara running down her perfect face. Marcus just stood there, frozen, like his brain couldn't process what was happening. The reporters swarmed, cameras flashing, questions shouting. "Mr. Holloway, did you steal from your wife? Ems. Montgomery, is it true you committed ethics violations?" "District Attorney Holloway, how long have you been using campaign funds illegally?" I watched from my seat in the back row. Watched the life Marcus had tried to build on my ruins collapse in real time. Watched him realize that the woman he'd thrown away had more power than he'd ever imagined. Margaret appeared beside me. "How do you feel?" "Satisfied," I said, and I meant it. Daniel caught my eye from across the chaos, gave me a small nod. Then he approached Marcus with another folder. "Also, your bank accounts are frozen pending criminal investigation. Your assets are subject to seizure. And your former wife is filing an amended divorce petition. She's seeking full restitution of stolen funds, punitive damages, and legal fees." He paused. "Oh, and the lease on your penthouse. That was paid through your father's campaign account too. You'll need to vacate by Monday." Marcus's knees buckled. He sat down hard on the steps of the altar, put his head in his hands. Claire knelt beside him. "Marcus, what do we do?" He looked at her, really looked at her, and said, "This is your fault. All of it. If you'd kept your mouth shut in the hallway that day, they wouldn't have had anything. My fault." "You're the one who—" "Just shut up, Claire! For once in your life, shut up." She stood up, stepped back, and for a moment I felt something like pity for her. Only a moment. The police led Marcus away in handcuffs, led his father away in handcuffs. The FBI took boxes of documents. The reporters got their footage, and the wedding guests stood around in their expensive clothes. Champagne glasses forgotten, watching the spectacle of privileged people facing consequences for the first time in their lives. I stayed until they were gone, until the venue was nearly empty except for staff and a few confused relatives. Then I stood up, ready to go. Jessica asked. "Almost." I walked down the aisle, toward the altar where Marcus and Claire had just pledged their eternal love. I picked up the bouquet Claire had dropped when the FBI arrived. White peonies. The same flowers from our wedding, from that day when I thought I was starting forever with someone who would cherish me. I carried them to a trash can, dropped them in, and walked away. "Now I'm ready," I said. The aftermath was a media circus. D.A. Holloway's arrest made national news. Prominent district attorney arrested for corruption ran the headlines. The story had everything: power, money, betrayal, justice. People ate it up. Claire Montgomery was disbarred. The ethics investigation found multiple violations beyond just representing Marcus. She'd been using her position at the law firm to help him hide assets, to fabricate evidence against me, to intimidate witnesses. Her career was over. Marcus was convicted on 4 counts of fraud and 1 count of identity theft, because his father had tried to use his influence to make the case disappear. The judge showed no mercy. 3 years in federal prison, full restitution of all stolen funds plus damages, and a permanent criminal record. His father got 5 years. When you're a district attorney, corruption charges carry extra weight. The sentence was meant to send a message: no one is above the law. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. I got everything. The penthouse, which I immediately sold. The cars. The investments. All the marital assets Marcus had tried to hide, plus the 847,000 he'd stolen, with interest, plus damages, plus penalties. In total, I walked away with over $4 million. Combined with my father's inheritance, I had more money than I knew what to do with. But it wasn't about the money. It had never been about the money. It was about justice, about standing up, about refusing to be erased. 6 months after the wedding, that wasn't. I was sitting in my new loft in Virginia, Highland, drinking coffee and watching the sunrise through floor, tip-ceiling windows. I'd bought the place with cash, decorated it myself. Every piece of furniture, every painting, every book chosen by me for me. Jessica was still asleep in the guest room. She'd moved in again after her lease ended, and we discovered we made excellent roommates. Some mornings, I'd wake up and forget about the pain. Forget about Marcus and Claire and everything they'd done. I'd just exist in my space, in my life, in my peace. The doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I checked the security camera, a habit I'd developed, and saw Margaret standing there with coffee and bagels. "I brought breakfast," she said when I opened the door. "And news." We sat at my kitchen island. She pulled out her tablet and showed me an article. Marcus is trying to appeal. His lawyer filed paperwork yesterday. I felt nothing. No anger, no fear. Just a distant curiosity. Will it work? Not a chance. The evidence is ironclad. He's just desperate. She took a bite of her bagel. "How are you doing?" "Good," I said. And I meant it. "Really good. Have you thought about what's next? Work? Travel? Sitting on a beach somewhere and drinking umbrella drinks for the rest of your life?" I laughed. "Actually, I have been thinking about something." "Tell me." "You remember I used to work at the museum, before Marcus convinced me to quit. The Renaissance art job. You loved that job." "I did. And I've been thinking about going back to that world. Not working for someone else, though. Starting my own gallery. Focusing on emerging artists, women artists, especially. Giving them the platform and support they deserve." Margaret smiled. "That sounds perfect. And I want to do something else too. With the women's shelter where I used to volunteer, I want to create a fund for women leaving abusive situations, legal fees, housing deposits, job training, everything they need to rebuild." "Catherine, that's incredible. My father gave me the resources to fight back. Not everyone has that. I want to be that resource for other people." I looked at her. "Would you help me set it up? Make sure it's done right?" "I would be honored." We spent the rest of the morning planning, sketching out ideas, building something good from the ashes of something terrible. Later that afternoon, I went for a walk in Piedmont Park. It was a beautiful day. Warm sun, cool breeze, children playing. I found a bench near the lake and sat down. My phone buzzed. A notification from the prison system. Marcus had tried to add me to his visitor list. I deleted it without responding. A woman sat down on the other end of the bench. She was younger than me, maybe late 20s, wearing sunglasses that didn't quite hide the bruise on her cheekbone. We sat in silence for a moment. Then she spoke. "Do you believe in second chances?" I looked at her. Really looked at her. Saw myself 2 years ago, broken, scared, thinking the pain was my fault. "I believe in first chances," I said. "The The first chance to save yourself. The first chance to stand up. The first chance to realize you deserve better. She turned toward me. What if you don't have the resources? What if you can't fight back? I pulled out my wallet. Found my card for the gallery I was planning. Wrote Margaret's number on the back. This is my lawyer. I said, handing it to her. She's the best. Tell her Catherine sent you. Tell her you need help. She'll know what to do. The woman took the card with shaking hands. I can't afford. It's already paid for. All of it. You just have to make the call. She started crying. Why would you do this? You don't even know me. Because someone did it for me, and now I'm doing it for you. That's how it works. I stood up. Make the call. Don't wait. Don't hope it gets better. Just make the call. I walked away before she could respond. Left her sitting there with Margaret's number and a choice to make. I couldn't save everyone. Couldn't fix every broken marriage or punish every manipulative spouse. But I could help where I could. One woman at a time. One fight at a time. That evening, I had dinner with Jessica at our favorite Thai place. We laughed over pad thai and spring rolls, making plans for the gallery, for trips we wanted to take, for the life I was building. Do you ever regret it? Jessica asked. The marriage, I mean. Do you wish it hadn't happened? I thought about it. Really thought about it. No, I said finally. Because if it hadn't happened, I wouldn't know how strong I am. I wouldn't have fought back. I wouldn't have discovered I could survive the worst thing I could imagine and come out better on the other side. I raised my glass of wine. To terrible husbands and the incredible women who destroy them. Jessica laughed and clinked her glass against mine. I'll drink to that. We finished dinner and walked home through the warm Atlanta night. The city lights sparkled. Music drifted from bars and restaurants. People laughed on patios and balconies. And I felt something I hadn't felt in years. I felt free. 1 year after the wedding that wasn't, I got a letter. From Marcus. Forwarded through Margaret because he didn't have my current address. She called before sending it. You don't have to read this. I can handle any legal matters without you seeing it. What is it? An apology, apparently. And a request? Send it to me. I want to read it. It arrived 2 days later. 3 pages, handwritten. Catherine, I know I have no right to contact you. I know you probably don't want to hear from me. But I need to say some things and I need you to hear them. I'm sorry. I know those words aren't enough. They can't undo what I did. They can't erase the pain I caused. But I need to say them anyway. I'm sorry for lying to you. For stealing from you. For making you feel crazy when you were seeing the truth. For treating you like you were worthless when you were the best thing in my life. Prison gives you a lot of time to think. To really look at yourself. To see the person you became and hate them. I hate who I was. I hate what I did to you. Claire filed for divorce. She said she couldn't be married to a felon. Said it was embarrassing. Said I ruined her life. The irony isn't lost on me. I destroyed your life for someone who couldn't even stand by me when things got hard. I know you'll never forgive me. I don't expect you to. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that you were right about everything. You were always right. And I was always wrong. I've been thinking about what my father used to say. That power is everything. That you take what you can get away with taking. That the world rewards the ruthless and punishes the weak. He was wrong. The world punishes cruelty. Eventually. Maybe not quickly. Maybe not obviously. But it comes. And when it does, you realize that all the things you thought made you powerful, money, connections, influence, they're nothing compared to having integrity, having someone who truly loves you, having peace. You have all those things now. I have none of them. That seems fair. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that you were the good one. You always were. And I'm sorry I couldn't see it until it was too late. I hope you're happy. I hope you've built a beautiful life. I hope you never think of me except as a cautionary tale. With regret, Marcus. I read the letter 3 times. Felt nothing. No satisfaction. No anger, no pity. Just a distant acknowledgement that he'd finally understood what he'd lost. I didn't respond. There was nothing to say. Nothing he could offer me that I didn't already have. Nothing he could take from me anymore. I put the letter in a drawer. Maybe someday I'd look at it again. Maybe not. It didn't matter. That afternoon, I opened the gallery. The right gallery specializing in emerging women artists. The opening night was packed. 200 people came to see the first exhibition, a collection called Phoenix Rising, featuring artists who'd overcome adversity. One painting in particular drew crowds. It was mine, the first piece I'd created in years, a self-portrait titled Before and After. On the left side, a woman in chains kneeling, head bowed. On the right side, the same woman standing tall, chains broken at her feet, wings spreading from her back. A reporter asked me about it. "What does this painting represent?" "Transformation," I said. "Not despite pain, but because of it. Sometimes you have to be broken completely before you can rebuild yourself stronger." The exhibition was a success. We sold 12 pieces that night. 3 artists got representation contracts, and I went home exhausted, fulfilled, and proud. Jessica had left a note on the kitchen counter, "Staying at David's tonight. Don't wait up. So proud of you." David was her new boyfriend, a kind, funny architect who treated her like she hung the moon. They were good together, healthy together. I poured myself a glass of wine and stood at my window looking out over the city, my life, my peace. My phone rang. "Margaret, the appeal was denied," she said. "Marcus is staying in prison for the full sentence." "Okay," I said. "Thank you for letting me know. How are you doing?" Really, I'm wonderful. I opened my gallery today. It was perfect. Everything I dreamed it would be. I'm so happy for you, Catherine. You've built something incredible from nothing." "Not from nothing," I said. "From pain. From loss. From that moment when I was sitting on Jessica's couch with $1,200 and no idea how to move forward." I smiled. "Turns out that was the beginning, not the end. You're an inspiration. You know that. I'm just someone who refused to stay down. That's all. Anyone can do it. Not everyone does, though." We said goodbye. I finished my wine, took a long bath, went to bed in my perfect loft, in my perfect life, in the peace I'd earned. Did you like the story, and which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect.